Hello and welcome to another edition of the Forza Avellino podcast. I am your host, Joe Fischetti. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. On today's episode, we are going to talk about the absolute crumble of Napoli. This train has crashed. It's burning. It's on fire. And that's it. I'm done. I'm throwing in the Napoli towel. I'm now an Avellino supporter. So we can, be a little bit more optimistic. We got promoted to Serie B this season. I can't even keep a straight face. We might as well laugh about the craziness that's going on with Napoli. We're going to cover all of that on today's episode because it's been a little while since we've had an episode. So we didn't cover Como. We didn't cover Frankfurt. This is being recorded right after, a couple days after the Bologna match, but it's going to be more of an episode on just the general situation at Napoli. And I am joined by a guest to help me out with all of that. Gianluca, you put your hand up pretty quickly to come on the pod to address this situation. So here we are.
Yeah, bro. My God. It is rough right now. I mean, we got 3 games with nothing to show for and an international break now where there's a lot of fun stories happening. So should be a fun discussion.
Yeah, first of all, let me take this shirt off for anyone who's watching on YouTube. If you're listening, I'm wearing an Avellino shirt, but hang on, I got a Napoli one underneath. Hold on.
Oh, that's great. All right, one more layer, Joe.
All right. Yeah, that's as far as the striptease is going, folks. Sign up for Patreon if you want more. I'm pretty or the yeah, no, I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there. But it's been a crazy week. Let me just throw up a slide on some of the recent matches because like I said, we haven't spoken on the pod about our recent matches, so we it's not been pretty. We had a 0-0 draw to Como, very low. I mean, across the board, our XG was pretty low. I guess. I mean, the match against Frankfurt I actually didn't think was that bad. I thought, I think the XG is a little bit inflated by just the volume of shots, so a little bit of an accumulation of low XG chances that makes it look like we had a higher XG, but we had some pretty big chances in that match. I feel like if Højlund scores in the opening 5-6 minutes, it's a totally different match. It ends up being high scoring. McTominay could have won the match for us late in the match. So there were chances to win that one, but back-to-back 0-0 draws. And just when we thought, it couldn't get worse, we play against admittedly an in-form Bologna side who's looked very good under Vincenzo Italiano, and maybe we'll chat a little bit about him in this episode at some point, but it wasn't pretty. It was a complete domination. We lose 2-0. You look at the stats and it kind of tells the whole story there. It was our 5th defeat in all competitions this season, our 3rd defeat in Serie A. That's only one less than we suffered all season last season. 4 defeats all season last season in Serie A, so not looking good. 3 consecutive matches without a goal. 4 consecutive matches without a goal from open play, because even against Lecce, our one goal, I think it was Anguissa that scored from a set piece, free kick, if I'm not mistaken. So, it's been pretty crazy. Injuries continuing to happen. Our pets' heads are falling off. Michele is leaving. Our chief scout is going to Arsenal effective immediately. Apparently, it's just been a crazy couple of days around this club, and it kind of culminated with this media frenzy of media speculation about a possible resignation of Antonio Conte. And what I'll pull up one of the quotes that was doing the rounds in the media. I'm not going to read it out for anyone who's watching on YouTube, but just the kind of highlights where he talked a lot about the lack of heart and desire. What was there last season is no longer there. To his credit, in a sort of un-Conte fashion, he did take the blame. He said, "This is my fault. It's on me. I haven't been able to get these guys to play with the same desire. We don't have chemistry." Um, but I think the comment that really, really put gas on the fire was that he said, there's no need to accompany a dead person, and that really sounded like talk from a person who was on the verge of resigning, and it's reminiscent, I think, of the comments he made right before he resigned from Tottenham, and after that, the media went nuts. It doesn't help that we have an international break, so at this time of whenever there's an international break, the media is looking for something to chew on, and Conte gave it to them. So I guess what I want to start with is something that Conte didn't mention, and that is something that we were talking about even before the Bologna match, which is just the physical condition of these players. What do you think? Because he seems to think this is all about mentality and desire and passion, and I get that when you watch these matches, it looks like they're lacking there, but it also looks like they're just lacking of any energy at all.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I mean, obviously, I feel like there's definitely some heart lacking, but I think it's due to these players being overworked and kind of being almost annoyed by it, right? They have to do their job more often, and it seems like their training hasn't changed much from last year, even with more more games every 3 days as opposed to every 6 or 7. And it shows. You're watching these games, and they look dead. They look out of it. There's those moments where they're carrying the ball, like maybe Anguissa or Politano, if he beats his man and just runs downfield. But we're not you know we're not looking better than any team that we've really played. As you said in the Frankfurt match, we maybe should have finished some chances, but outside of that, let's say that one chance we finish, we still didn't look good enough. We're not producing, and I think we're really feeling the Lukaku situation, because he's crucial to the way Conte plays, a forward that could hold up. And with KDB out, we don't have a player that can open Hoyland up in the way that he's at his best. So it's just right now these guys are running around like chickens without heads, and there's no rotation, like you said earlier. We're not seeing a different lineup. We're seeing the same thing that didn't work for 2 games in a row. And I think we are lacking a lot of creativity, and because we don't have that, teams are pressing us like no tomorrow. We have no escape plan. We have no one that we could throw the ball into space and they could just carry, run, beat a defender and be one-on-one, or just some type of counterattack. We don't have that. And Neres and Lang only come on the field when it's we're losing, or it's 0-0 and it's late. So it's hard to see positives right now. All the stats and the numbers, they could only say so much. But you watch these games, if it wasn't Napoli and I wasn't watching the team that I'm obsessed with and in love with, I'd fall asleep most of these games, because there's nothing good happening. It's just the same thing over and over.
Well, I mean, Serie A did not do itself any favors this round in terms of there were, I think, 3 0-0 matches to start the Saturday.
Yeah, it was brutal. Brutal.
Yeah, so not good. A couple of things. One, Bologna played on Thursday, and they played that game 70 minutes of that game. What was it, Europa League or Conference League, with a red card, and they still ran us off the pitch. Yeah, and they also suffered a couple of
players. They rotated 6 whole players, and they looked like the team that won the Scudetto last year.
Yeah, or the Coppa Italia. Or you mean like they looked like the
Yeah,
champions and
like
yeah,
we looked like a team that was fighting, like like,
right.
and they've been great at home this year. They haven't lost, so I
Mhm.
wasn't expecting it to be,
An easy
a
match.
guaranteed win. But the way that game went, it was just there was nothing good to take from it.
Yeah, and Conte gave his compliments to Bologna because I think he saw the fire in them that he wants to see from his own team. Right, like they were. Uh, you mentioned the press; they were relentless in the press, and it just forced us to just keep going long. And again, because we're tired and guys are just that little bit slower, especially Lobotka. I found when I watched the Frankfurt match, I think that was the one he started. You could see he was not fully recovered from that injury, and I still don't think he is. And we'll get to Lobotka and his comments
We'll
later
get
on.
that.
We're going to end the pod with that piece, but that lack of energy forced us, along with that press, forced us to just keep booting the ball along. And like I love Vanya Milinkovic-Savic, but I feel like he resorts to the long ball a little bit too much because he has that big kick. Now that could be at Conte's direction. It's a weapon, so maybe use it. Um, but yeah, the energy was so lacking. Bologna again ran us off the park. They were borderline dirty, even like they were playing super physical. They were, but and
Yeah,
I don't like. I honestly, obviously, playing against them that's frustrating because they were going in late to tackles. Like Hoyland was getting just abused constantly, but if the official's allowing it, then you keep doing it. You adjust your play to the way the official's playing. I mean, we'll put aside the second goal and that whole disaster with
yeah,
Keefe, but you saw them like getting under our skin. We saw Elmas getting into the face of Emil Holm. I didn't realize he was such a instigator, I guess, Holm, because he got into a couple little skirmishes. There was one play where he kind of nudged McTominay and he went crashing into Hoyland on a corner
yeah.
kick. There's a lot of these little kind of borderline dirty plays, but it was effective. You mentioned Neres and Lang not playing much. That was something we were chatting about in our chat that even before the match because we knew that it wasn't working. And so I think at a very basic level, like no one here is trying to say that we're better coaches than Antonio Conte, obviously. But just at a very basic high level, I think people were thinking just try something because just doing the same thing over and over again when it's not working, you're crazy to think that's going to suddenly start to work. And we were kind of proven right there.
Yeah, and also it's not like we're asking you to reinvent the wheel, right? Like use the formation we used last season that we won
Mm-hmm.
with, and maybe rest one guy or two guys, and even in the media and like Sky and Gazzetta, like, and granted, these guys aren't fortune tellers, they don't know the future, but they were writing and saying how oh, we might see Politano rest this game, and Elmas and Neres or something along those lines, right? And then we get the official lineup, and it's a 4-3-3. Elmas is in, but so is Politano, and it's like I understand. Look, this guy is a fighter. He plays hard. You know, he's not like a lazy player, right? But you can tell when he's tired by his inaccuracies. And the difference with the Spalletti season is we had another winger, Lozano, whether people loved him, hated him, whatever. You knew that you could get a shift out of him, right? And he'll track back and whatever. He might be a little bit more risky, but he's gonna follow the tactics. Now I feel like Neres knows Conte's you know game plan and way of playing where he's gonna put that out. But I feel like there's just such a consistency with Politano that it's just like we got to see something else. Like he could dribble every single player in the world. If you're not going to produce an assist or score a goal as a winger, what is it? You know, like we might as well just put anyone out there. What does it matter at that point? Because like or like try Spinazzola as the winger. Like, you know, like what? How can we have a winger with no assists or one assist the whole season and think that we can produce right when we're now not with a forward that has hold up play and is producing 10 assists as well, right? We have a forward that's just going to finish. So we need to set him up to finish. And we don't have players that are putting him in a place. And look, yeah, I get the KDB argument and how him and Hoyland, it was a match made in heaven. KDB right now is practically dead. There's no use. It doesn't matter. We need to figure something else out, and it can't be what we're doing because right now it just feels flat, predictable, slow, and every attack ends with a retreat, more or less. And it's almost boring, like, you know, because we're not winning. When you're winning, it doesn't matter how you're doing it, but when results aren't coming, it's just like, all right, like something's gotta give, something's gotta change. And
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
I no, real quick, last thing with this, I think I saw something online, and this might be a grab or some BS or whatever, but
mhm.
the whole story of like Politano and Di Lorenzo, they could do any wrong and they know that they're going to start. It does feel that way now. Like, and I get that there's limited options, but it definitely feels that way. We have enough left backs for 3 teams. We, people, these are professionals. You could put one on the other side and rest the captain. The world won't end. You know?
Yeah, so a couple things. One, I actually thought Hoyland's hold up play was pretty good in the Bologna match, but the problem was he had no support. So like he was dropping and holding up the play, and then there's like nobody around him. Or to your point, we play it to Politano, and then he plays it back. And what one thing Bologna did really well was they were very compact in the middle of the park and just forced us to play on the outside. Um, I'll come to the point. I'll come back to both KDB's absence and the impact of that, as well as kind of Di Lorenzo and Politano being almost untouchable and knowing it. But I want to go back to Lang and Neres for a second, because I can't help but wonder if they're just in Conte's kind of bad book, and that's why they're not playing, and like he's putting his ego above kind of the greater good. Because if you recall, like after the PSV, was it the PSV match? I think it was, or maybe after the Frankfurt match, um, Lang was interviewed by Zigo Sport or something
That
like that.
was
I
the
guess
PSV match.
it was the PSV match.
Yeah,
Okay,
because he knows all those reporters, so he felt really,
right.
comfortable.
That's right. And he said to them, "I've only spoken to Conte once, and it's better that I don't say anything. And every player wants to play, and he doesn't know what else to do." So like that's obviously not going to go bode well. And I feel like Neres, he seems to be pretty close to Lang. I don't know if it's because of the PSV connection or whatever it might be. So I do wonder if they're just not playing because they're being punished for speaking out like that, or
It's
Lang
so
is.
silly though. Like, we got to win, and if you're using these guys when we're desperate, then they're obviously good enough.
Yeah. At the same time, I think like none of our wingers are really uh, producing, right? Like you look at the stats. I mean, Politano would probably be the worst just because he's played all 10 or 10 out of the 11 games, started 9 of them. And you can see if
Yeah.
you're watching this on YouTube that one assist, 0.13 goals and assists per 90 minutes, which is less than Neres. I mean, Lang has nothing, so he had a goal taken away, but he's also playing the least, right? It's harder when you're playing less. You're just coming in for a lot of those minutes are scraps at the end of the match, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 13 minutes. His longest appearance was like, I don't know, 36 minutes, something like that. So
until he got injured, I think that game.
yeah, exactly. And I think, but again, I think a big part of this is because the the missing piece in the midfield or the lack of creativity in the midfield. So that is something I wanted to talk about. Like how I don't think it's a coincidence that these results or poor results coincide with De Bruyne being injured. You look at our XG over the last few matches: 0.2 against Bologna, 0.7 against Como, or Serie A matches. That is against Frankfurt, we had a pretty good XG. 0.9 against Lecce, so that wasn't great, even though we won that match. Even the Inter match, our XG was only 1.3, and we scored a penalty kick. A penalty kick is usually about 0.8. So even though we scored 3 goals in that match, our non-penalty XG was like 0.5, which is horrible. So and that was the game that De Bruyne got hurt taking the penalty kick. So, how much of this do we attribute to just the absence of a player like De Bruyne?
Listen, he's one of the best soccer players and midfielders of the modern era. He's a huge miss, but at the same time, we won the Scudetto last year, and albeit it might have been by 1 point, we were still a really strong team. We were not an easy team to beat. We weren't an easy team to score against. Let alone 2 goals. And, we were still scoring goals. Granted, it might have been only 1 goal or 2 goals in a game. I don't know what our average was last year, but, we weren't flying that high. And right now, it looks like we got nothing. And, yeah, Lukaku is huge. Massive point of reference in Conte ball and on Napoli especially. And now the other X factor is Raspadori, right? Last year we had him and he was able to produce, but still, like the core of our team, when you look at it, it's not much all different. Right now, our team is exactly the same as the Scudetto, aside from Lukaku being on the field, more or less. Like we're playing with Politano and Hoyland. We're just not using a winger, but if Spinazzola all it's in, it's pretty much what we were doing. And it's really unfortunate that, a lot of what we practiced this summer and even throughout the year up until KDB got hurt was very much revolving around that, that type of game plan that's centered around him. Because now it looks like we have nothing and we're just trying to figure it out as we go. And, just Lukaku is the best striker ever and carried us last year, like on his back. My dad said, I don't know if I mentioned this to you already, but my dad said, if Lukaku means this much to Conte and Conte's system, then they might as well retire at the same time and call it a time. Because how else, what else is the reason? Like, how is it that we're doing that bad? Like, I get it, we lost KDB, but in reality, we had him for only 8 games or 10 games ever in comparison to last year and this whole group of people that played together. It's only Lukaku that's really missing from the 11. And Neres, but or whoever, Spina, he would play in that position once Vada left. So it's just unfortunate that so many things have occurred, because it's so hard to say, like, what was the spark to this stretch of bad form, this little slump we're in. And we hope to figure it out soon so that we could come out of this international breakup willing, not looking the same as we did in the last 3 games, at least.
Yeah, I think as soon as De Bruyne got hurt, a lot of us immediately felt like, okay, we have to go back to the 4-3-3, because the reality is we didn't have De Bruyne last season. So yeah, clearly we know there is a way to play without him. Like, it's not like everybody forgot how to do that. I do wonder, like, would Lukaku really make that much of a difference if he's getting no service either? I'm not so sure.
I think he just affected the gameplay, his hold up, and because of how much he would be able to keep a defender on his back, it would allow Scott to hit that line or Anguissa to hit that line, and then they bounce off of him. But now it's tough, and I think exhaustion has a lot to do with it too. That they're not like quicker on their feet to get to these places. Scott looks tired. He looks like, whenever he gets the ball in that final touch, it's just not there.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. I'll just quickly mention as well that I do really feel like Højlund is suffering with KDB's absence because he hasn't scored since the Genoa match. And it's not for lack of effort. Like, I actually agree with Conte that Højlund was probably our best player against Bologna, but he needs that service. Yeah, exactly. But you mentioned the exhaustion, and there were a few different reports. I think who was the guy on Sky Sport? Massimo Ugolini, who's not very liked by the club, but he mentioned this. Calcio Napoli 24 had a piece on it as well. They called it an exclusive, but it was basically the same report. And that classic Italian journalism. There's probably one little minor detail that they uncovered, so it's now an exclusive report. But basically, what these guys were all reporting was that Di Lorenzo and Politano, so our captain and our vice captain, on behalf of the entire team, apparently approached Manna to ask for a little bit of a change in the training because they're all exhausted and they didn't really get much. What Ugolini reported was that Conte agreed to remove the pre-match ritiro for the Bologna match, which I don't know if that's just like, okay, we don't need to all get together, at the hotel.
Sleepover.
The sleepover. But the Bologna match was an away match, so they would have all been together anyways. Or if it's kind of like the light training that they tend to do on the morning of the match day. So that's not really much of a concession from Conte to say, okay, we're going to still do the intense training all week, but I'll let you not have to do the easy one before the game. And, like, to add to the pile of crap, we find out that Anguissa now has a muscle injury as well that he suffered in his first training session with Cameroon. And I hate to say it, but it did kind of feel like it was only a matter of time because we were literally running him into the ground, not only playing every single match, but playing the full 90 minutes of every single match. That felt like it was going to happen. He was due to get hurt. And again, going back to like Neres and Lang, partly why we were hoping those guys would see more starts is because we don't like in defense. We seem to be okay. We've recovered our defenders, so we can rotate. Like Bokuma played a bunch, and he's clearly not the preferred option. Rachmani is better, and I guess one of the positives, other than that Bologna match, is that our defense has actually been pretty good. Buongiorno seems to be still. This is a crazy thing to say, but I feel like Juan Jesus is still ahead of Buongiorno in terms of quality at the moment. I think Buongiorno's still kind of getting his timing back.
He got that second Bologna goal. He got thrown into space.
Yeah.
Usually a big defender, you jump up like that, you're able to hold your ground. And he was in that gap. Him getting shoved allowed that wide open header.
Free header, yeah. And he was the one that conceded the penalty kick against Como. He was just late to react. Was it the Como one or the Lecce one? Maybe the Lecce one.
PSV, he was just
so he's been struggling to get back to full kind of form. But nonetheless, like we have our full stock of center backs. At striker, we're getting better. Hopefully, Lukaku's about a month or so away. The midfield is where we're really kind of hurting clearly. So I don't know. I just feel like the exhaustion, like part of that is down to the injuries, but are the injuries because of Conte's training techniques?
Yeah, I mean, it it has to do something, like when you're hearing players, talk about it, how they have, especially recently, like this report from Sky, where you know, Politano, and also too, like I want to say, like, do you think going to Mana is a little bit of a cop out? Like on
I
them,
mean,
like, do you think that was a little bit of a like, oh, we're cool with him, he's young, he's hip, he's cool, like we're gonna tell him and let him be the middleman? Like, what isn't it like more normal for them to go to like Lele? Like, isn't
yeah, I
that
mean,
isn't
Oriali
that
probably, yeah, he's like the team manager. He's probably the right person to go to. I don't know
like
why he would have gone to Mana. Mind you, that's
I'm
who
telling you,
knows who
like
they
that's
actually
the
spoke
thing.
to, if that's accurate.
Yeah,
But I think
if
what I
that
was
was the
not
case, I think
surprised
it's because
about,
he's young and they have fun with him,
yeah,
and they feel like
maybe,
much more like with him. Like he
yeah,
doesn't feel
maybe
like
they
an
feel like,
authority to them.
yeah, maybe Oriali, they feel like he's just Conte's guy. You would
Crony.
expect the captain. You would expect the captain to talk to Conte himself, and maybe he tried and got shot down, so they went to a different level, which is also not. It's like
Which is
escalating
really
on
stupid.
someone at work. You know, that's not going to bode well for you with the person you're escalating on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, but
It's curious, but like with the injuries, it definitely feels like it has something to do with the training because of all these comments people are making. And I know we want to talk about it later, but like what Lobotka has said, like there's too many things, and also past players and other teams that, like, we can't assume based on what's happening that the training might be a little bit too intense for them based on the amount of times that they're playing and the players at his disposal, right? So you can rotate, right? But like even still, we don't have another three midfielders that can maintain our quality. So like we can rotate, but within reason, and these guys will still have to play. So it's still very difficult, especially now with where we are with injuries and who we have on squad. But I think too, like how we were mentioning offline, like losing our one of our head physios that worked with Conte through every team, the Tiberio and Cora, like obviously that guy knew what he was doing because we didn't face this many issues. Conte's historically never faced this many issues as I know, like you've mentioned and Ben has mentioned. Like this is an anomaly in regards to what Conte does and has done in the past. But right now it's happening, and changes need to be made because maybe the one doctor in the world that knows what to do with players under this type of conditioning isn't with us. So like something's got to give. Like you mentioned earlier, we can't expect different results doing the same thing. And if the players are calling this out and they're getting hurt in the process, it'll get worse if it doesn't change.
yeah, I don't think there's much value in comparing to last season because we were playing once a week, and it was a pretty regular thing for Conte to give the players a day or even 2 days off after the match day because he could. And now he can't do that anymore because he has to prepare for these midweek Champions League matches. And it does seem to be taking its toll. Clearly, it's taking its toll. But you're right. Like, I went back and I looked at his seasons at Tottenham, Inter, and Chelsea. And you mentioned Juve um, offline. And he didn't really have injury crises at those clubs. There were a little bit at Tottenham where he had, or sorry, at Inter it might have been where he had, one game at Inter in one of those 2 seasons where he was missing like 7 guys due to injury. Um, in his first season, he had 2 games where he had 6 players out, but pretty much throughout his time at any of these clubs, he never had more than 5 injuries at the same time. At Chelsea, not more than 4 for one game, and for the whole season for 3. Now, the English clubs, they have much better facilities, they have bigger staff, um, they have bigger squads when you consider like how the quality of their youth systems, and a lot of those guys would probably be starters in Serie A, but they're kind of training and staying with their first team in the hopes of cracking that squad. So Inter seems to be like the best comparison. but injuries were never really an issue, and he still played twice a week at all these clubs. So it is a bit of an anomaly. I do also wonder how much of this has to do with the age of the squad. Now, I know we brought in a lot of youth in the summer, but really, those younger guys like Bokuma, like Marianucci is like vanished. He didn't even get called up to the U21 squad, which didn't look very good for him. Hoyland is playing quite a bit. Elmas is playing. Gutierrez has been a positive, but all of those guys, they're only playing out of necessity, right? And that's again because of the injuries. But the core of this squad, I think it's like 7 or 8 of them are over the age of 30. And Geese is 29, but he turns 30 in like a week. So we'll put him in the 30 category. Hoyland is playing because Lukaku's hurt, but Rachmani's 31, Di Lorenzo 32, Spinazzola, who's been a huge miss. No one thought we would be saying that because he was actually our most creative player at the start of the season, which is a bad thing in and of itself. He's 32, Lobotka 30, De Bruyne 34, Politano 32, Lukaku 32. So, like, I think the combination of the intense training and the age of the core of this squad, those things don't go well together, and now we're seeing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the age definitely matters in soccer, right? Because now we're playing not like you said how we were last year, and also too like that it could also come to a mentality thing. Sadly, that players can be used to getting more leniency out of Conte last year, and now he's being much more strict, and they're like, what happened to our cool coach that we won with? And if that's the case, that's pathetic. But at this point, I don't know what it is. Like like these guys are dropping like flies. A lot of them are Lukaku and KDB. Those are pretty big injuries. Even Medet's injury is not minor. It just doesn't make sense. And right now, I think they really need to focus on finding a solution to getting everybody on the same page, because if things keep going the way they are, and it's just black cloud, and it becomes harder and harder to get out of that. And I think too, like you were mentioning, with the with the facilities and everything, even the technology that they have in these other clubs, we don't know where Napoli's at. Tell the truth, like they may have taken this step up with having Conte, and I think they actually have, because you could see them wearing those like kind of tracking devices, and that's something that's definitely new for the team. But with that, then you would imagine, like, are they tracking anything? Like, what are they looking at? Like, are we just figuring out how many kilometers these guys are running a game? Like, because it's very apparent that these guys are tired, and like you said too, a lot of the new additions, some of them are way too green to get in the game, and others you're just left wondering, why aren't they given a chance? So it's just it's definitely going to be an interesting finish to this international duty, while while a bulk of the team is out having the time of their life with their international teams. There's some unfortunate few that are going to be training tomorrow with Conte. So it should be interesting.
Yeah, I threw up De Laurentiis's tweets. I merged them, but there were a lot of reports over the last couple days that Conte is going to have a face-to-face with De Laurentiis, and then there was a report that Conte's in Torino, and it was like, okay, like, it's because it was his daughter's birthday. Like, everybody, the media, and I gotta say, now this is gonna sound super, super biased, but you tell me what you think, but I think I know what you think anyways. But I feel like ever since Marotta came out and made his comments to the media about whatever it was, all of a sudden everything started turning against us. Okay, like, obviously that doesn't cause injuries, but like Keefe having a horrendous match in the Bologna match. Again, I don't necessarily think that would have changed the outcome because I think we deserve to lose that match. But then like this insane media frenzy of all this stuff about Conte's leaving. I don't know. I feel like those things might be connected.
Well, listen, we know where the media stands, right? Like there's video footage clear as day on the Sky cover, where the background that for some reason, I don't know why they still do this, because I'm pretty sure this isn't the first time Sky coverage in Italy has gotten caught with people reacting in the background of the faded view, celebrating, whether it's a Juve game or a Milan or Inter game. But it definitely feels somewhat connected, right? Like, look, these papers, they don't like us, especially the only papers that like us are like the editions that come from Campania. But outside of that, the Gazzetta, the Corriere dello Sport, Tutto, whatever that one. What is it? Tutto Sport.
That's the Torino one.
Yeah, they hate
I think
us.
Cairo owns them.
Yeah, right. And before that, like Berlusconi owned everything else. So like they hate us. They hate us. They're not going to talk one nice thing about us. And this summer was definitely proof to that, right? Like we have zero idea how much truth there was to Conte going to Juventus whatsoever. But the way the papers spoke about it, you thought it was a 100% guarantee, and then somehow, some way, De Laurentiis convinced him to change his mind. Meanwhile, more than likely, he wasn't planning on leaving. They just wanted to have a rediscussion, and that was it. And they set that up, and then that was that. And that's just what it is. It's a tale as old as time in Italy. The papers do not like Napoli. Anytime they can, they're gonna try to stir division, and it really is up to us as a fan base and as the team more so. They got to stay united. And listen, me and you and our friends, our buddies, and everyone, we're trying to stay united, and we're not getting paid. These guys, they're having a hard time, and they're getting paid 50,000, 100,000 a week. They're getting paid a lot of money. Like, they don't got, like, I don't understand. Like, that's the thing. Like, if they don't have any pride, like, they're just willing to be like, oh, we're not happy, so we're not going to show up. Like, my thing is like, if you're really unhappy and like you're really exhausted and you feel these trainings are too tough, really go to the coach. Don't go to the sporting director. Like, I really feel like that's a sad move. And to your point too, like since Marotta came out, it feels like the media has been trying to bait De Laurentiis to come out. Now they got it, as you could see, with his lovely long tweets. But it's I don't know. I feel it's frustrating because like this team is capable. This team could win, and there's just a little black cloud hanging over us because we've had a string of bad games, and there's a lot of injuries, and now we'll probably find out if there's another significant one to add to the list with Anguissa, who we'll never know. But like you said, I think this was inevitable, and it really is just it's starting to get stressful. But hopefully we could come out and surprise Atalanta. But I don't know.
One thing I will say is Conte is his best when he's cornered, so it might force him to do something crazy, like play Di Lorenzo as a midfielder or something. Who knows? But
he's stuck with Neres for this international break, so who knows? Maybe they get along, they figure it out.
Yeah. But I posted this tweet, or I displayed this tweet or string of tweets from De Laurentiis because he came out right away and put full support for the coach. I actually also wonder, like you mentioned, the summer drama. Conte is also a bit of a master at getting people to spend money, and we spent a ton of money, which also is frustrating to hear some of his comments where it's like, hold on a second, now he's complaining that we have all these new faces and guys are this and that, and but Conte was fully involved in the mercato. It was kind of like the three heads, right? Conte, Manna, and De Laurentiis. So any players we brought in, including the ones who are struggling like Luca, Conte had to bless those decisions. But the club spent a massive sum of money in the summer, I don't know, 150 million or whatever it was. Now it sounds like he's getting even more money. So I wonder if, or even more spending. Like there were some reports today that the club is definitely going to add a player like Kobe Mainu or someone in that role, and probably another player as well to reinforce the squad to help with the injury situation. So maybe Conte was setting the table to get more spending from the club. The 3 C's thing makes me laugh because even people in Napoli are like, I don't know what 3 C's he's talking about. Like there was, I don't know, cafe, quota, and I don't know, whatever else. But yeah, there's different versions, but like nobody knows what 3 C's he's talking about.
It's an inside joke.
Maybe who knows? But I at the same time, it seems like a very fragile situation. And one of the things we were excited about with having Conte was that he can instill a winning mentality, even after he leaves. Like you look at Juve when he joined them, like all these teams. We talked about this when he was hired, right? He is a guy that can come in, take a team that finished 10th place and turn them into a winning team. And they tend to continue to succeed after that. Like Inter he ended their banter era, and they've since under Inzaghi played in 2 Champions League finals, right? And a lot of that was he set the table for that. Not to take away from Inzaghi or
yeah, but he inherited a very nice situation.
Sure, and again, he got them to spend a lot of money, but still, like we felt like this is a serial winner, and he's going to instill a winning mentality. And now, with this whole situation with Di Lorenzo and Politano, it kind of feels like that weak mentality is kind of rearing its ugly head. We think back to the Scudetti lost in a Scudetto lost in a hotel, or the mutiny, or we're starting to get some of these vibes, the 10th place season, and then to top it all off, we get Stanislav Lobotka, of all people, doing a podcast that actually made me as a podcaster feel like I could definitely have some Napoli players on my pod if that's kind of like the setup they got going on over there. But it was like in a Liga, something. He's done this podcast. He tends to do this podcast like whenever there's an international break, he talks to these guys. Apparently it was recorded weeks ago. So I think we need to keep that in mind. Like this wasn't him kind of stoking the fire at the worst possible time. I don't know when the podcast was published, if it was just published in the last couple of days.
Probably when he was injured.
Yeah, or if they waited to release it for the international break because now he's going to be playing with Slovakia. But some of the comments we saw in this podcast were really, really poorly timed. Yeah. He talked a lot about just again the crazy intensity of the training. He said that he's been talking to KDB, and KDB told him that in his 10 years at City he hasn't run as much as he has in like this one season at Napoli, and Lobo's response was like, well, welcome to hell.
Welcome to hell.
There was one where another line about how he said he would have told De Bruyne to just send him his shirt and don't come. He said KDB told him that after his first training session that he didn't expect it to be that intense, that he can't catch his breath. He said that with apparently he mentioned how like he respects De Bruyne for making that decision, because if he were in those shoes, knowing Conte, the workload under Conte, he wouldn't have made that decision. And KDB joked that if he could choose again, he would go to America or Arabia. There's just like, I don't know, they spent the whole podcast just like ripping on the training. It just, Now Lobo's agent did come out and say he
Yeah,
was
he's joking.
joking. It was all in
Is
jest.
KDB an option next year? Right?
I think so, yeah.
Mm,
So we'll see if
there you
that
go.
even happens. Well, especially with this serious injury. But at the same time, there were also comments um, from his agent Branislav Jurasek, who went on a different podcast, the VAR podcast, and talked basically about how it's time for Lobo to leave. He said if he wins a third title this season, it'll make it easier for him to leave. He said that he's 30 years old, and while his contract has significantly improved, I think in salary wise, um, physically holding out under Conte is practically impossible at this point. He said Conte is very demanding.
Basically, if
Um,
Conte says he's out,
yeah, he said if exactly. He said he also said like next summer would be, he's 30 years old now, and Napoli could get a good sum of money for him, so that might be the perfect time to sell him. And like a part of me is justifies it because he's an agent, right? He wants to sell the player because then he gets a commission and that's how he gets paid. But what worried me and what was more concerning to me is that on that same podcast that Lobo did with Liga or whatever, um, he said that his agent told him that perhaps 2026 could be the right time for a change of scenery. And he said, and honestly, I think he's right. And so I was like, oh man, like this is a guy who we've loved for the last few
yeah,
seasons.
it's rough. They're like,
The timing could not be worse.
yeah, and it's just like why we like listen, these guys aren't gonna play for life. I get it. They excuse me, they move on, but why you gotta like talk about it mid season? Like it's just I wish I had that much luxury, right? Like I could go public and talk about how like, yeah, in the future, this seems like a good summer to leave my job. And it's like who like why? What's the point of this? Especially when like you're competing at a high level. You know, you're one of the starters of the team. Like you're a leader, right? And now um your teammates will go on social media. They all follow these same Napoli accounts that we all do, or they see them, and they'll see that, like, you're saying all these things. Like De Bruyne is probably going to see this stuff. He's going to be like, "What the hell?" With one leg, like on his bed on a pillow, and he's going to be like, "What the hell is this guy talking about?" It's just, it's very foolish, and I think it was who was it? Faina. I think Vince sent us the tweet, but Faina, that Damiano Faina, that podcaster, he he said he posted something on Twitter. I think that Spalletti wants Lobotka. So like this is gonna be fun. It's gonna be very fun. And to go back actually, to what you were saying a little earlier when you were mentioning how like Conte, complained about the 9 players, but then like him and De Laurentiis, they've discussed what could be the issue and whatever, and then now he might get more money to spend. Maybe it is the older players that are the issue, and Conte, because he's just so stubborn, he doesn't trust these younger guys yet to slap them in, and like I mean, I don't know. I'm grasping at straws at this point.
Well, he does seem to trust them if they've played in the Premier League, because he played McTominay pretty much right from the get go. He played Hoyland right from the get go, and he's only 22. He played De Bruyne from the get go, which obviously is a world class player. And we are shopping and continuing to shop. So maybe a guy like Mainu would go straight into the starting 11, because they play with that same sort of intensity and physicality in the Premier League that Conte likes. But yeah, I mean, there was I think Lobo also said in the podcast that like if Conte finds out about this, he's gonna make me run for weeks. And which made me just think like, are you so naive to think like, you must really not follow the Italian media, because
Yeah, like how do you expect to
they
get out
they
of this?
report like the aggregators. I don't know how they even do it. They must have people that are just scanning and searching keywords and stuff, because any minor mention of anyone of any type of level of celebrity, if they just mention Napoli, it could be anywhere on like and totally out of context on a TV show and whatever, it's getting reported. So of course they are going to report on a podcast that has a Napoli player as a guest. Like, are you really that naive to think this is not going to get out there? And now who knows what other drama it's going to create. Hopefully Gilmore can recover quickly, because we might be seeing the end of Lobotka pretty soon.
Yeah, it's sad too, right? Like, because like obviously always this team is always going to matter way more to us than it does to any one of these players that are wearing the jersey,
or coaches for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, we don't get me started. So that's
Spalletti, man, and probably
right?
too,
right? but it's just it's frustrating because, like, granted, I'm not following other teams as closely, but I'm not seeing players speak out this way about them, and you really just wish that, like, this type of stuff wouldn't be happening when we're hitting a stretch of bad form. We're coming out of a pretty bad 5 games, or 6 games. You remove the Inter game, there's nothing really to write home about. And it's just very very flat, and, like, we're not adapting, we're not changing, like we're not doing anything. And what that tells me is that, like, yeah, we got these players, and I think the players that we got in the summer were always meant to be like following season replacements and like substitutes and rest subs for this season, and get like integrated and really get to the point of being good and filling in, like, kind of like, I guess, how Spinazzola was last year. Like, he didn't look good when he was in at the beginning, and he didn't really bloom until the final third of the season. But now the starters are not up to par, and they're not buying in the way they were. And I think Conte is frustrated by that. And, they're asking for a break or whatever they're doing. I saw something about, like, McTominay trying to, like, motivate the team, and that, like, maybe some of the older players were like, relax, kind of like, yeah, you were the MVP last year, but it's because, like, we're a good team. But I don't know if that was just some phony BS, like, like we were saying before, that they're all out to get us and divide us. There's all these stories you don't know what to believe.
That sounds like the union guys, like
Monblano probably reported it, to tell the truth.
It's like when
Monblano is like literally like he's like in a dark room with a candle, and he's just like typing up terrible stories. He said Conte quit like 2 days ago.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah, it kind of sounds like when a young guy joins the workforce and he's eager to do, and then the union guys have to come in and say, "Whoa, there, young fella, like, settle down. We're not trying to work harder here." But I mean, don't look at the schedule, because you mentioned the last 5-6 games being nothing to write home about. The next 8 games are going to be absolutely brutal. It's 8 games over 4 weeks, starting with Atalanta, who just appointed Palladino as a new coach during this international break. So you're going to have the new coach bump. I mean, you have to think, even if we rotate to play against Karabag, that we should win that match. If we don't, we might as well just throw in the towel in the Champions League.
Listen, they're tough. But I think my dad is like the only person following them, and he watched Chelsea Karabag the whole game, and he said they're not going to be an easy team. He was like, they're going to be tough. He was like, I promise you. He's like, and like, this is the thing too, right? Like last year, and the way that we were playing, the way games were finishing, if you told me we were going to get 8 Napoli games over the course of a month, I would be like, yeah, like, this is the best. Like, I can't wait. especially like going into December. It's like, it's cold out. You get to watch these games. You get to chill out. Nothing's going on, especially if you're able to work from home and, have that luxury like I do sometimes. So now it's like when you're saying that, like you said, like we have 8 games over the next 4 weeks, like that just gave me anxiety. Like
it's
I don't feel
mortifying.
good about that. And I know like the first 5 games, they're pretty brutal. Like we got this Atalanta game. I know Juve's in the mix here.
Yeah, so I have the schedule up here, and I mean, this is the first time I've openly welcomed an international break. Normally, it's like the worst thing in the world, and right now I'm like, oh,
I need
thank God
2 in a row.
we can breathe a little bit. Yeah, hopefully
extended.
recover some players. But after Karabag, we have Roma, who are tied top of the table with.
Is that home or away?
That is away. It's at the Olimpico. And then we're home against Cagliari, who have also actually been pretty good. Caprile he was probably our best goalkeeper. The way things are looking, but obviously it's easier to be goalkeeper at Cagliari than it is at a bigger club. After that, we host Juventus. Then we have Benfica away in the Champions League. Then Udinese away, and then Milan at home, and that kind of then there's like a 2-week break. I think actually that 2-week break is probably, if I'm not mistaken, for the Supercoppa.
Oh wow!
Because I think that's usually when they do it. I could be wrong, but
we need to win that.
Yeah, I don't know. That might be the only thing to win this.
That's against Bologna too.
Yeah, I don't know if I. Oh no, sorry. My mistake. The Milan match is the Supercoppa match, so that's probably why there's that break. Because if you win the semifinal, you need to be available for the final, and then there's probably like a week off for Christmas or whatever. So
that's probably gonna. God, I hope things get a little bit better, because if they don't, and then we go into that and we lose, it's going to be an implode. I'm going to delete my Twitter. I don't even want to see all the
and even that the Cagliari match is our Coppa Italia match. So even that one.
Oh yeah, now we'll see people rotate.
Yeah,
Conte will be like, "What do you want from me? I rotated. You asked me to rotate. I rotated, and now we lost."
And this is the thing, right? Like looking at that schedule, there's no reason why we shouldn't rotate against Karabag. Granted, your father said they're not as easy as we might think. There's no reason we shouldn't rotate against Cagliari. Oh, by the way, like for those who don't know, Gianluca knows this already, but I love his father's tweets. He like sends them to me all the time, and I teased Gianluca actually today that he's actually. Like everybody mark it on your calendars, 9:09 a.m. on November 11th, 2025, Gianluca became his father.
Listen, they tied Chelsea, man. They tied them 2-2.
Yeah, but like we have to rotate at some point. So if you have to pick something, I think that's the place to do it, and Cagliari is the place to do it. And this is kind of how I wanted to close the pod, which is to try to put a bit of a positive spin on this whole thing, and that is that I'm pretty content, in spite of all the craziness and all the rumors and all the drama, knowing that we've had so many injuries, regardless of who's to blame for those injuries. But to be going into the international break only 2 points from the top of the table is actually pretty good. And like one thing we would say last season, and what a lot of people used to say before we won the Scudetto with Conte, was that if you could just get to like January and still be within striking distance of the Scudetto, then Conte can get you there. And so that should still be the objective, especially with the injury situation. It's not going to be easy looking at that grueling schedule. And
if we beat Roma, or steal some points from them, that's a big one.
A draw even is massive there away from
And Juventus, we must win. There's no...
That's a different story, yeah. Especially with Spalletti there now. By the way, I think Spalletti will get a warm reception at the Marotta. At the end of the day, he still won us a Scudetto. That's my opinion. But anyway, we'll see. But my point...
Yeah. Hold on. I'm just gonna say this one thing.
Okay, right? Let's hear.
Because this is, I'm just put a hypothetical out there, right? Like you have a, neither me or you, because we're both happily married men, but there's a person out there, right, that has a girlfriend, and they're making them wildly happy every day of the week. They can't get enough, every year thankful that it's just an amazing relationship. There's no problems. She cheats on him. now now what? That's it? We're happy?
Hold on a second. This is not the right analogy. I feel like this
No.
is more
You're sleeping with the enemy. All right. You
no,
break
no, no.
up. You break
You're
up,
the
and then she sleeps with the person that like they
right,
told you not to
exactly.
worry about it the
You're
whole
the
time.
grumpy ex-boyfriend that or this hypothetical situation. They broke up.
And now she's with
And
the
then
guy.
she
She said,
started
"Don't worry
dating
about
his
him.
yeah, she's dating the jock or whatever.
Don't worry about him. He's nobody."
Yeah.
That's it. And like, listen, the only reason we could say that is because he said it all himself.
Yeah.
If these things weren't said, then I could just be like, what a jerk.
He
He
should
went
have
to
owned
Juve.
it. Like for him to people very again going back to the Italian media and like picking up on every little detail and remembering. They very quickly pulled up the interview where he said he cannot coach anywhere else in
Yeah.
Serie A
And then he
after
said
being
it's just that season. It's like, get the hell out
yeah,
of
it was like, oh,
here.
I just
What do
like,
you think?
what, yeah, how dumb do you think we
Give
are?
me a break. Sorry, I had to.
No, that's okay, but but again, like what I wanted to close with is just that if we want to be optimists, and I get it, it's hard to be optimistic right now. What we can say is like if Conte can actually find a way to whether it's and I know he's stubborn, so it's probably highly unlikely. Like the more likely scenario, if we're being frank, is this is not optimistic, is that he's just going to continue doing exactly what he's doing. We're going to keep getting injuries. We're going to keep dropping points, and he's going to quit.
Oh
but if
God.
but if somehow, like maybe because he had this reassurance from the club, he knows they're going to bring in reinforcements. He knows Lukaku's almost ready to come back. If somehow he can get us some results in the next month, especially in the Serie A matches, we drop points against Benfica or even Karabag, or we get knocked out of the Coppa Italia, we get knocked out of the Super Coppa. I care less about those things. They're important, but I care less about them.
They'll just be made into anthills turned into mountains. Like
sure, but at least if we're still in striking distance of a Scudetto, then there's still something there to fight for. If he can do that, and if he can show that he's either willing to lighten up on the training or rotate more or whatever, then another Scudetto is still very much in play. Like you read some of these reports, you would think we're sitting in like
yeah,
Juve
and look,
10th place or whatever, Como or whatever.
I honestly think, just based on like his reputation and how he came into Napoli and like a lot of the things that he said, if he were to leave, it wouldn't be till the end of the season. I don't see him leaving mid season only because of like also the things that he said. And I like to think that like, he has a little bit more integrity than Spalletti. Spalletti just feels like a poet, like when he talks. Like he likes to say cute things and like, sound cool and make the right statement. But like, I feel like Conte, he said those things and like he's gonna want to like stand behind them, unless there's some type of major type of betrayal. But I think if Conte gets on the phone and he's just like, yeah, these guys, player 1, 2, and 3 aren't aren't doing what I want, like, they're giving me trouble. I think De Laurentiis is gonna be more attentive to what Conte's telling him rather than like wanting to defend the players, because it's different when you're telling him you got me guys that don't work, rather than these guys, they're causing problems again, and they've caused you a lot of problems in the past. If we're going to be realistic, the guys, the people that have been here from Ancelotti till now, there's a lot of the same, the people that are the senators, so to speak, are the same. And we went through a lot of problems in the last 5 years, if you really think about it. And it can't be these new signings causing the team to really fall apart. It doesn't make sense. Do we really think Noah Lang can be causing this much trouble?
No, but that was another positive actually that I wanted to highlight. That again, if we want to see the silver lining, one of the silver linings of all these injuries is that like I do now feel a lot. We knew like even last season we knew that Conte's players. Part of the reason why you say like or we would say he needs to get to January still within striking distance is because we know that Conte has a very specific system and a certain intensity of training, and it just takes time for those players to adapt, for the whole team when he's a new coach to adapt to that. And so if you can get results to that point, then once that machine starts going and it's running smoothly, it'll take you to the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like now he might actually be more comfortable rotating because guys like look at Gutierrez, he's ahead of Oliveira in the squad depth
Yeah.
charts now at left back, right? So guys like him, guys like Elmas, Bokma, even though he hasn't featured much since Rachmani returned, but having gotten those minutes, Conte might be more comfortable rotating them in now because he knows that they understand the
Yeah.
system.
But we need to see the right guys rotated, right? Like
Yeah,
we're seeing people rotated, which is good, but then there's other players that like the thought is just not happening.
yeah.
And
Well,
like
that's the right side, right? It's
yeah,
you mentioned it earlier. It's the Politano and Di Lorenzo,
they're untouchable right now. These
which I
guys
don't
are
get because Neres,
they're like the head of the mob.
yeah, like in preseason, it was very clear that Conte's intent was for Neres to be the backup right winger. I don't know if it's because we never got um, Dan and Doy, and that kind of threw a wrench in those plans. But I don't see why he couldn't rotate in
Yeah,
for.
but if we would have got Ndoye, right?
Mhm.
Are we not getting KDB anymore? And then like we still were trying to get Ndoye after KDB, so like how would we line up? That's what's confusing to
No,
me.
but Ndoye was just going to be the left winger.
Yeah,
So
but
what?
if we have KDB,
Oh, I see
right,
what you mean. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
then how are we
Because we're
lining
because we're
up? Like
kind of
that's my
using like
curiosity. It
McTominay
feels
as a bit of a left wing, quasi left wing slash
yeah.
midfielder. Yeah.
So like that's what I don't get. Like it just feels like there was no plan B. Like we're just stuck in like this is what we're doing. Like this is it. Like this is what we prepared for. This is what we're gonna stick with. And like when we did make changes, like that Inter game, starting Neres as a false nine, like we looked great. And then since then it's just been like, you know, pretty pretty ugly and not that exciting. And like to your point, like right, Oliveira got kind of taken over by Gutierrez. Why don't we just like swing Oliveira to the other side or Gutierrez to the other side and rest Di Lorenzo? And we have these guys available. Like why not? I feel like resting the captain is like something that's unheard of at Napoli. The last time captain got rested, um, he left in January, and his name is Mara Kemsin.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I get your point. Maybe that's one of the positions, one of the voids they're going to try to fill in January as well. Because Oliveira's never played at right back, so I think that might be a bit of a stretch. But I don't know, play Mazzocchi.
Can you not do it though? Like he's a
Someone.
professional
Spinazzola
soccer
can do
player.
it. Like give Spinazzola the. I agree. But Spinazzola can probably do it if we really need to. There's things you can do, right? So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to end on a positive here, by the way.
I'm sorry. Listen, we're a fully capable team. I definitely believe in our ability 100%, and I do trust Conte. But I just, I worry about what the mentality is, and now that these guys are apart from each other, and if Di Lorenzo and Politano are problematic, they're freaking together at the national team right now, enjoying life with Gattuso, which is the most ironic thing in the world, and. And we're hoping everything comes back and everyone's cool and we could get back on that page, on that same page. And that first game back is going to be huge, and hopefully we could come out with a result. We have the team on paper. We're better than Atalanta. There's maybe one or two players on Atalanta that can start on Napoli. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. It's just it's all about who wants to win it more, and I'm hoping that Conte, has a good training sessions with the guys that aren't in training for international duty, and we could see them possibly make the impact for us.
Yeah, I think maybe in a way this is kind of similar to new manager bump as well, where it's like, okay, we had this big explosion. I'm sure there are a lot of internal conversations happening. It's probably a good thing that guys are able to go off on international duty, just have a change of scenery for a little bit. You're certainly not training as intensely as when you're with Conte, so it probably feels like a vacation for some of these guys. Like, I think there's quite a bit of truth to Lobo's comments, even though he shouldn't have aired his dirty laundry in public on a random podcast. But hopefully, that break gives us a chance to reset. It gives Conte some time to reflect. It certainly gives him time to game plan for Atalanta. It'll be tricky because you have to now game plan for, you'll have to look up like old Palladino footage to understand like how he plays. And actually, I think Palladino's a lot better suited for that team than Juric was. That was a horrible appointment. But maybe we get a bit of a new manager bump, at the same time. So it starts there. That's when we will return for the next episode. But Gianluca, we're over, but it's been a while, so thank you for coming on, and hopefully you feel better, because you were you had some choice words, not just for Spalletti but also for Biancaneves.
Yeah, hopefully that bird's somewhere enjoying time without Spalletti too. But yeah, no, it's been, we were overdue. It's been a while, and I know we talked a lot here, but it was good. It was like a little therapy session.
Those are always the best episodes. The podcast is, sadly and ironically, the podcast tends to be better when things are doom and gloom. When things are going great, it's a little bit repetitive. Yeah. We're happy, but you really get the good stuff when, unfortunately, when things are not going so great. But hopefully we turn it around. If you want to find Gianluca, you can find him on X at Gianluca617. He is a part of the Tri-State Napoli Club. You can find them at _Napoli Club. You can find me on X at Joe_Fischetti5, and you can find the podcast at Forza Napoli Pod. If you're listening and you want to watch the video version, you can find the podcast on YouTube, Forza Napoli Podcast. And if you do check it out on YouTube, please give us a like and a subscription. That just helps to get the podcast, give it a further reach. So, like I said, I will be back in, I guess it's a couple weeks after the international break to review that Atalanta match. But until next time, I'm Joe Fischetti. Forza Napoli sempre.